A colleague of mine walked up to me the other day and made an interesting remark. She said that every time I go and speak on stage, I look visibly uncomfortable, which is true. She thought it was me wearing a suit. And she suggested I wear my regular uniform. In her opinion, I would be more comfortable. And she was very sweet enough to add, my personality shone through. Although I love her for her display of concern, she doesn't truly fathom why I have discomfort. Public speaking comes difficult to me. My knees tend to quiver, my throat turns dry, there's sweat that trickles at the back of my neck, and every once in a while, I feel faint. Why? I'll get to that later. What I've been told that to make public speaking easier for me, I should start with something simple. So here goes. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. I love this poem. It's easy to remember. It's got a great tune. And I never really questioned anyone why they taught it to us. I remember it now, although 45 years have passed. I was probably 4, like most of us in this room, when I first heard it. It's got relatable enough lyrics, especially to naughty young kids to whom gravity has acted against the acts of silliness. But as I grew older, questions arose. Like, why would somebody build a well at the top of a hill? Building a well at the top of a hill makes it difficult to tap into the groundwater. Why shouldn't you build a well at the bottom of the hill? Water runs off from the top of the hill to the bottom. Wouldn't it be easier to build a well where the water collected there? As I grew older, I studied more, I learned more. I learned that water tables do exist at the top of a hill. And the problem of runoff actually looks at things rather positively. When you build a well at the top of the hill, the running of water carries with it detritus, debris, and pollutants that would make the well water undrinkable. Memories, questions, answers, evolution. The entire complex system of the search for solutions lies in the human brain. It's a strange quest that begins in the most complex of matters. By the time a child is 5, 90% of their brain is developed. It's 90% of what you will have in your skulls at any point in time. Over the next 20 years, only 10% is developed. Scientists, modern science, believes that our brains are developed by the time we are 25. It is this 10% that carries with it the angst, the anger, the emotions, and the little joys. The development of the 10% takes with it personality and choice of career. All this in that 10%. But it's this 10% that completes us as humans. Scientists are divided. Some of them feel that attention should be paid to the first 5 years of the development of a human child, because that sees the most gains in a human brain development. Others believe that we should pay attention to the next 20 years because that 10% of brain development brings with it happiness. And we can build a utopian society where happiness is evenly distributed. But not everyone has that luxury of choice. And I want to illustrate this through a story. Now, I know everybody is going to let out a groan and say, here goes another story from the Mahabharata. But no, for today, I'm going to speak about ancient Greek mythology. Hera was the queen of heavens. She was the wife of Zeus, the king of gods. One day, Hera gave birth to a son whom she named Hephaestus. Now, when Hera laid eyes on a newborn child, she was mortified. She was really, really upset because her child was born deformed. He was born with a club foot and he would forever walk with a limp. Enraged, Hera threw her child out of her bedroom, out of her chambers on Mount Olympus, threw the child out of the heavens. The child fell from the skies into the sea, where he was rescued by two sea nymphs, which are the equivalent of fairies. They took the child and hid him in an underwater cave. Satisfied that his mother's gaze over the oceans would not discover the child in his new residence, they began to teach him the art of metallurgy. True to his celestial lineage, he began to excel. He started off by creating and crafting intricate pieces of jewelry. It was bought by princes, by kings, and by the gods themselves. His fame spread far and wide, and soon the gods were lining up to his door to get him to craft celestial weapons and even armor for them. He was truly dedicated to his craft, and because of his excellence, the gods petitioned Hera and had Hephaestus return to his rightful place in the heavens. Hera, being an all-powerful deity, still couldn't figure out the potential of a child. Imagine the clarity of the ancient Greeks. They are there, they're sitting, they're saying, Hera, we know you're the queen of gods. We know your husband is the king of gods, and even he's scared of you. You can force him to hit me with a lightning bolt, or he sleeps on the sofa. But you know what? We are here today to tell you that you're absolutely wrong about the potential of a child, and the child is going to prove you wrong. And Hephaestus did just that. He proved his mother wrong. And imagine how much more the child could have achieved had Hera nurtured it through the first 5 years of his life and the 20 years later. The Greeks knew this well and created an all-inclusive society. We refer to the ancient Greeks as a Greek civilization. A society receives the title of civilization when human social and cultural development reaches its peak. But these lessons have been lost to us. When Hitler went out to create his amazing society where everybody was going to be perfect, he decided just to kill everybody who thought different. That's so crazy. I want you to do a really quick thing right now. I want you to look around the room, look at your neighbors. But I don't want you to see each other as people, but as apes with the potential for change. And I'm sure that shocks you. 99% of our DNA we share with apes. The 1% that's different is our brain. And the only reason we achieved that, this is a journey that began millions of years ago. The only reason we achieved that is because somewhere around the evolutionary line, some of our hairy ancestors decided to eat 700 extra calories a day. Who knew that a burger, soda, and fries could take you that far? And that 700 extra calories a day went to the development of our brain. Apes spend 85% of their daylight hours eating, but they eat a mainly cellulose-based diet, and so it doesn't help them with the development of their brain. So our entire evolution has been a mistake. We evolved because we are gluttons. And it's only greed that gets in the way of us achieving our solidarity. But then it's also these brains that set us apart. It gives us empathy and it gives us the power to love. And it's what poetically connects our emotions with our heart. And for those that prefer the theory of creationism over evolution, I've got something to say about that. Can you imagine God being in his workshop, creating the human being, and the angels come up to him and say, "Hey God, what you doing?" And he says, "This is going to be my greatest creation ever. I'm making a human." And the angels go, "Oh, wow. Are they going to have big teeth and claws?" And God's going to say, "No. In fact, it's going to be hygienic of them to trim their nails every week." "What about tough hide and skin?" And God's going to say, no. And they're going to buy products to hydrate and moisturize their skin. And they're going to have debates in society as to how much skin showing is appropriate. And God's going to say, and the angels are going to ask God, will they have quills and pretty feathers? And God's going to say, No. And are they going to have camouflage? Or will they run fast? And God's going to say, no, no, no. Then they're going to turn to God, obviously. They're going to turn to God and they're going to say, so God, how are they your greatest creation ever? And God's going to say, because I will give them a brain. And with that brain, they're going to build things to protect themselves and to rise up to the top of the food chain. They will build houses and they will get clothes and they will cover themselves and protect themselves from the elements. And the same brain will allow them to love, to hold, to empathize, and to create a society where everyone is different. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give each of them a different brain, that they're going to think differently, to varying degrees of intelligence. And with this, the strong is going to protect the weak, and love is going to ensure that there's no jealousy, no angst, no hatred, and no anger. And so it came to pass. We have a society where we all think differently, and we all think to varying degrees of difference and intelligence. But we do not accept our society the way it is, do we? For those who think extremely different, we have a new name for them. We call them neurodivergent. Who are we to judge? We are the people who are meant to nurture, to hold, to empathize, to help flourish together. And we are judgmental to the core. We give people names like idiots and morons and imbeciles, and we cover this, we camouflage this under the harsh guise of psychology. We believe that we absolutely understand way people are meant to be. What if we are wrong and that's actually the way that we are meant to be? 15 to 20% of the world is neurodivergent. Out of the 15 to 20% of the world that's neurodivergent, 40% will never be integrated into society, nor they will be given gainful employment. 85% autism is a form of neurodivergence, and 85% of autistic people will never be integrated into society, nor be given a choice of rightful employment. This is our modern world. NASA, which employs the smartest people in the world, understands this, and they've built N3, which is the NASA Neurodivergent Network that wants to tap into the power of neurodivergence and people who think differently. Technically, with my clinical diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, I shouldn't be able to stand in front of you and address this august assembly. But I was very lucky. I have a determined mother, and thank God I didn't have Hera as my mom. That would have read differently. Somewhere along the way, I think that the Hephaestus story should be read differently. We blindly believe that Hephaestus was dropped from the heavens because he was disabled and was allowed back only because he displayed superior skill. I think it is meant to say that if we nurture, hold, and help each other flourish, we can recreate the heavens right here on earth. Thank you for being a fabulous audience.